Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with addictions of all varieties. We're a resource for anybody out there searching for the solution. I'm Justin B., a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living in miraculous recovery, and I'm blessed to be the moderator of this roundtable, sitting around virtually from all over North America here. I've got David G. in Oklahoma, I've got Nikki M. in Toronto, Ontario, and just grateful to be here with them. Before we get started, I'm going to have them both introduce themselves real quick. David, jump in and say hi.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for your service, Justin and Nikki. Always a pleasure to be at the table with you. I'm David G. I'm a recovered alcoholic addict of many sorts from Oklahoma, and I'm super grateful to be here today to participate in this Big Book Roundtable. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Nikki, you're up.
Hi, family. And I'm just a blessed earth angel, it seems, walking around, just trying to, learn more. I'm a grateful member, and that's what I commit to, is to be a member of this fellowship, which is really all anonymous, the disease of alcoholism. So more is getting revealed, and I'm realizing that, I'm a spirit creature wandering around having a human experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Man, so over the last several weeks, we've been diving deep into how it works, chapter 5, and we are continuing into the deep end of the pool here for the next few episodes as we finish up how it works. But right now, we're getting into now about sex. This is a very all-encompassing piece that I think we can really get a lot out of and see where the book leads us and where our higher power will lead us as we get through this. So I'm going to start at the bottom of page 68, starting with now about sex, and I will read through page 69. We got it all down on paper and looked at it. So here we go with the reading. Now about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. All right, so there's our reading on this, and we got some good stuff to go through. So once again, we are in the 4th edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, page 68 and 69. Get your pen out, your highlighter, your paper, anything to take notes, and then we will let's dive into this. David, as we read through those couple of paragraphs, what are some of the things that you'd like to point out to us?
Well, man, there is just so much here today that, I'm not going to steal the show and take up all the time, but I mean, this is so much to get through. I mean, we could do hours on this, but I really would like to break down my experience with it in the way that I do it with the people that I work with. Especially when we get to the 9 questions. So now about sex, many of us need an overhauling there. And for most of us, this is going to be more than a mere tune-up. We're going to have some overhauling to do. Now, I'm not a mechanic, but I have had my vehicle overhauled a few times. And I know if there's not maintenance kept on it, things aren't continued to be checked, fluid levels, different stuff. At some point, if I just run wild with it, then it's going to begin to break down all over again. And this has been my life with this. This has been the hardest addiction for me to overcome in 30 years of recovery. I'd like to tell you I had 30 years sober in this as well, but that's a lie. It's not true. And this is something that has resurfaced over and over and over and over until I really, really took a close look at this inventory the last time that I did it. And then I began to let God make the changes for me, other than coming up with ways that I could overhaul myself. Then I really began to get some results, and I've been free from this for some time now. But I can tell you that I had a very severe beating with it in 2019. Again, a couple of years later, I'd had a couple of years of sobriety from this, and I fell out again. And at that time, I just thought, shit, I'm never going to get well. I'm just not ever going to recover from this. But God's grace and love is more powerful. This time I didn't run from it. This time I didn't lie about it. I came back to the guys I worked with and I said, this is what's happened. You may want to find somebody new to work with. And they were like, absolutely not. I mean, I want to continue doing the work the way we do it. And, by God's grace, from that time to this, and that's been some time now, I'm in a good place, but today is today, and I'm staying right there. So we try to be sensible, because so many people lose their sense when it comes to this, especially if they're trying to tell you what to do and how to be. And it says it's so easy to get way off the track. And even inside the fellowship, it's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to the extremes. I'm talking about my sponsor. I'm talking about people in meetings. These opinions are running to extremes of what I should do. I like when it starts to talk about the voice. This is the voices within. I'm either listening to the voice of addiction or the voice of recovery. So one set of voices inside of my head is going to cry that sex is the lust of our lower nature. It was only ever meant to be to make babies. Then I'm going to have another set of voices come in for sex and more sex, and that's usually the one I listen to. And so anyway, you read on down through that. Again, we don't have time for me to go into all that today. But the one thing that I always did is I would list, because this is what I was told to do, every name, every person, every fantasy that I had ever had. And this is very strong advice in one particular group that I go to, and I love their recovery, but I can't agree with it when it comes to this, because my book says nothing, not one thing about that here. I don't read that nowhere. I don't even see where it tells me to make a list of names. It says we all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? I don't see anywhere right there before I jump into these questions where it tells me to make a list of the people that I've slept with my entire life. It's not there. We reviewed our conduct, not a list of names, over the years past. I'm going to want to look at my conduct in 9 areas from the time that I was big enough to know any better until now. And the first thing we're going to look at is selfishness, because we talked about the soldiers of self and self-will all the way through this book. We've seen that in our fear inventory. It was reliance upon self-reliance. Over here, we're going to see it's gratification for self. It's called self-gratification. And we do this through this act. Where was I selfish? Here's some questions that I'm going to ask myself as I begin to write this. Was I using partners for my status, my security, power, control, sexual needs, ambition, self-esteem? Was I always wanting my way? I want to look at those questions, and I want to prayerfully meditate on those, because if you remember in step 3, there was no amen at the end of that. So we're still very much in prayer. If you do this without praying, you're just wasting pen and paper and a whole lot of time, because self is going to write this for you. And it's going to look, all you're going to do is look at all the nasty, dirty stuff you've ever done in your life. And that's not what this is asking. So it asked me to look at dishonesty. Here's some questions I need to ask myself when writing this. Am I pretending to really care or love somebody? Now, I will do that from time to time if I feel like I'm going to get sex or whatever out of it. Really, I see the third part of step 4 isn't even about sex. It's about conduct. Sex is the final thing, just like drinking, just like drug, just like love addiction. If that's your problem, just don't do it anymore, and there shouldn't be a problem. But every time I stop doing it, this is the stuff that shows up that leads me back to it. Next question. Am I not being truthful? Am I cheating? Am I using sex as a power? Do I have wrong motives? Am I using these women as my higher power? Am I using sex as a weapon? Am I refusing sex to get my way? Am I lying to myself? Am I being a phony? Am I leading women on? Am I using them just for sex? Am I rebounding from a recent relationship or a breakup? Am I having sex with myself and ignoring my partner? Having a distorted view of sex, expecting them to read my mind and not sharing my feelings? I mean, I could go on and on and on with this, but let's look at inconsiderate. Am I not treating them fairly? Am I not thinking of their feelings and sexual needs? Am I saying unkind things? Am I manipulating to get my way? Do I care about their wants, their desires, their needs, or is it all about mine? Am I acting immature? Next question, who did I hurt? Now notice, that's not asking me to list names of the people I've hurt. It's usually falls under this category for me: God, her, me, my children, her children, my family, her family. I'm not writing all these names down. So when you get to the next question, it says, did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy? I'm going to stop and I'm going to write about that. I'm writing about each one of these. Am I talking about past relationship for effect, to make her jealous, to make her do what I want? Am I flirting with other women in front of her? Am I creating jealousy there? Am I staring at other women? Am I playing mind games? What about the next section? Suspicion. Am I acting suspicious? Am I keeping my phone on buzz? Am I keeping secrets? Am I hiding? Am I avoiding looking my partner in the eye when I'm talking to her? Am I avoiding her sexually? Am I not calling? Is my behavior odd? My absence? I mean, there's so many ways to see now. Bitterness. Here's a big one. Throwing temper tantrum, brainstorms, being negative, ending the relationship in anger, acting inappropriately, being selfish in everything, starting arguments to get my way, trying to control them, using them for sex, not condescending remarks. But now my book's going to ask me to take a look at where I've been at fault. Now, before I just write something down quick and move on, but here are some serious questions I should ask. My motives were wrong. I was not spiritually fit to even be in that relationship to begin with. I was very selfish. I just thought of myself. I was full of self-centered fear. I based a relationship on sex. I didn't accept them as they were. I kept the relationship going for my needs. I had a distorted view of sex. I had shame issues. I used alcohol and stuff during my active years to overcome fears and insecurities, and that ended up creating more problems. So the last question here, what should I have done instead? I should have checked my motives. I should have got to know them before we decided to have sex. For one thing, I should have honored my marriage, because most of the times that I done this, I was married. Practice forgiveness, been intimate in other ways, communicated, been a brother to these women. I mean, there's so many times I could have been a brother to these women and provided a safe place for them and kept predators and Alcoholics Anonymous and other fellowships like myself away from these women, which I damn sure do today. Respected them, not expecting them to make me happy or solve my problems, not control them. Treat sex as a spiritual and a God-given, focused on a wholesome relationship, and ended the relationship in good terms. And these are a lot of serious questions, and I know we went through them kind of fast, but I make every one of my guys write about these in depth. And if they bullshit around on this, they have to go back and redo it. There's no skipping on this, because this is what has made so many of us sick. And the problem is that ego will justify that. Oh, yeah, we're only men. This is what we do in the locker room. We talk this kind of crap. No, it's not what we do. It's not what we do at all. I mean, if we become a man of God now and we give our will and life to God in the third step, and we're walking away from self, then we're going to have to look at this honestly and answer some pretty damn hard questions. And it's not pretty. It's not at all. But man, it's so rewarding. This part of the book that we're in, these next couple of episodes, God is mentioned 7 times in this section. That's one of the most times in a small writing that God is mentioned that many times. So this is a very powerful part. And if we skip over this or just half-ass it, for a guy like me, that's deadly. That's deadly. I almost died from this in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I don't care to go back there again. Today, I set very strong boundaries with this. That's why in the last episode, I asked if you're a lady, you contact Nikki or Justin to get a hold of me through me. And that's just the way I roll. I don't take women through the book anymore. There's things I do not do because I've burnt myself on that too many times. So God is bigger than this problem, I promise. And that's what we're seeking, is an awakening from self. So thanks for letting me share, Justin. I'm really glad to be here today. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. The last time we were together, we went through a fear inventory together and kind of walked through it. And maybe we can do that with this also here in a minute. But first, I'd like to have Nikki. Nikki, what takeaways do you have there that you'd like to point out?
Thank you so much. And I think if we go through every single question, we'll be here for hours. But I know that you're going to put the show notes in the, because I need to go through them one-on-one myself and send them to David or you or somebody, even my sponsor. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, remember, David's been here a long time. He didn't do this the first year, 2, 3. This took a long time to get these questions to get to where he is. Cause I'm like overwhelmed going, yeah, Nikki, you've been here a long time and you're still learning. I'm only, I'm just getting started. So thank you, David. I mean, you just grow me so much. Page 68, now about sex. And here I write, now about love, now about relationships, now about fantasy addiction, now about codependency, now about people and all those things that go with it. Because this is deep, as David said. And so, yes, many of us need an overhauling. And David described it perfectly, an overhauling, not just a little fixing and a little trickening with. And this is a complete overhaul. And I love this. Above all, and you guys, if you know me, I don't look at the word tried because I follow spiritual leaders like Yoda. We do or do not. There is no try. We be sensible on this question. How do you be sensible? Page 102. My only job is to be helpful. Is this helpful? Why? Because it's so easy to get way off track. I mean, God's timing is amazing. We're here right now, and this is where I've been getting off track. Practicing these principles in all my affairs, says step 12. And then page 19 that we talked about way in early episodes says that we practice this in this order in our respective homes, our occupations, and our affairs. I've been doing it backwards. I've gotten way off track with my affairs, everybody else, my job, which is to serve all of you guys and be a servant of God, and my respective home, like my home where I'm intimate and personal with the man I love, is way off track. And I've been listening to human opinions that run from extremes. I've been with people who are in the rooms who, when I'm in a blackout, if you want to know what a blackout, it's not drunk. It's not that I'm filling my God-shaped hole with anything but evil. And I say evil thoughts because they're no good. They're no good. I'm completely in self, in my old belief system. And I'm listening to people who are not opening the big book, and they're in the rooms, and their opinions are absurd and extreme, as are mine in that moment. And I've been actually listening to these people, and it's not good. It's like these voices in my head, they get real loud. They get real loud because this is my main addiction. This is my main addiction. Alcohol, that's child's play, and drugs, I can take that or leave that. When I am deep in love, or what I think is, or whatever distorted my addict life tells me, and I took my time, a lot of those questions as you were going through them, David, I could honestly answer, like, really with great satisfaction, that I'm doing a lot of these things in God's will, but a lot I'm not. And so, then we have voices who cry for sex and more sex. I sponsor, this is my first fellowship, Al-Anon, Codependency, and Sex and Love Anonymous. And I sponsor a woman who came back from living her dreams from Toronto to California. Everything just came back, an old sponsee. She decided when she went to California, she's an alcoholic, but I met her in the rooms of Sex and Love Anonymous. She's since come back, and she's going buck wild right now, but that's okay. She said, it's fun. And I'm watching her die. And she said, oh, I saw this guy, and we went out a few times, and I had to block him, Nikki. I said, but you said it was fun. Like, it's really hard in this cunning and baffling and all powerful disease of alcoholism I can't do this alone. This is serious. And then those who bewail the institution of marriage. And you know what? My views have changed over the years because my book said, we read it, that the consciousness of my belief is sure to come to me. So all these different things that they talk about here, I've been vacillating, and I've noticed a lot of people in this fellowship do. It changes. They think we do not have enough of it. I mean, it's like opinions, right? Like right here, I love this. Like, I'm going to say it. Opinions are like assholes. We all have one. The tradition 10, we're to have no opinions on outside matters. And sometimes I take that right deep down into me, which are, I'm not to have an opinion on anything outside of myself. It says we want to stay out of this controversy. And I always say, hey, is this helpful? Page 102. Your only job is to be helpful, Nikki. And most of the time when it comes to sex, love, manipulation of others, which is the actor running the show, no, it's not helpful. This is real radical stuff. And I don't want to be the arbitrator of anyone's sex conduct, including my children. Remember, we do try and practice these. Well, we do not try, practice these principles in all our affairs. I don't want to tell my 32-year-old daughter, and I get real controlling. I was a single mother at 18, so I have big opinions on a lot of this. And yes, we all have sex, love, codependency, family, relationship problems. We'd hardly be having a human experience, because remember, I'm here having a human experience, but I need a spiritual experience every day, or I won't make it. And what can we do about it? Well, we can stay in the middle of this program. So I have to review, and I love what you said, my own conduct. It doesn't say sex. And when I write this out, my own conduct and the list, the human race, that's who I've destroyed, because it's not just the men I've slept with. I don't need to do a fifth step. And meetings aren't safe. So everybody, make sure you go to the properly appointed authority when you're sharing this information, because I know people who walk into rooms and share this information and they don't understand what sex and love addiction is all about. And these people get alienated from the rooms and go and kill themselves alone. You know what I mean? The rooms are not safe. You're going to hear me say something, and then you're going to hold your person tighter thinking, I still do that. I've been reborn. Or you're going to hear a man say something awful in a room and no one's going to want to be around him, but he's been reborn. Don't do a fifth step in a meeting. They're not safe. Review your own conduct. And David went through this so good, I don't even know where to go. But it says, where are we at fault? It doesn't say, what is my part? I'm always to blame. And I love this in our program, everybody. You're already getting yourself and your sponsee into step 9 right here. So they can't run away. Oh, I've got to do all these things. No, you heard what David said. This is a conduct. So what should I have done instead? I should have gotten humble. I should have been responsible. I should have been trusting, kind, respectful of my body and my others. I mean, it's real deep, deep stuff. And why do I got to get it all down on paper and look at it? Because it's the size of Oklahoma in my head. And so I need to shrink that shit down, or I will not get out of bed, especially like with what David was saying. That's a lot of questions. And so you need to take your time in this department, because, I was going to kill myself and kill my lover. I don't need to go pick up a drink. I don't even know where to go in this darkness of love addiction and relationship addiction and fantasy addiction. I just want to die. And I know many other people in this fellowship who have experienced the same feeling. There's nothing to pick up in the darkness of love addiction and sex addiction except God and these spiritual principles and each other, or I won't make it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing that and going through that. What I'd like to do now is let's do a real life run through of this inventory, kind of like what we did with the fear inventory in the last episode that we did. David, if you wouldn't mind going through and asking some questions, we'll bullet point them. We'll come back to them as after the questions get run through and just kind of analyze some of these things. So go ahead and lead us through this process, David.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for asking me to do this. I'm honored as always, and especially with you two. I love you dearly. And if you're the listening audience and you have a pen and paper, you want to bullet point some of this as we go along, please follow us along. If not, be sure to listen to what we do here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to review our conduct. And we're going to look at selfishness first. So if you want to write down selfish, if you have a piece of paper, just write selfish. And we're going to take a look at how we've been selfish. Now, the first question that I always ask is, have we used partners for our status? That's more than a yes or a no. Just bullet point, do that. And let me just give you an example of mine that may help you with yours. I singled people out. I used them for sex, and then I'd feel like I had power and control. And the truth is, the power and the control feeling came first. Sex was just what followed along. So whatever your answer may be, and remember, be sure to be in prayer when you do this, because there was no amen at the end of step 3, so we're still very much in prayer. Let's look at security, power, and control. I mean, just kind of bullet point your answer there. Did I use sex to get my way? Did I lead you on? Did I, promise you a good time? Did I pay you a whole lot of attention? And, how did I try to control that person? Did I do it through lies? Did I do it through attraction? You know how we do. We dress nice. We wear good smelling stuff, whatever it may be. But I do this, for my needs, my ambition, self-esteem. I'm always wanting my way. So if you want to bullet point a couple of answers with that, and just give me a thumbs up when you're finished, then we will move to the next. Okay. Dishonesty. Pretending to really care or love them. Not being truthful. Did I lie about who I was, how much money I made? I'm a great guy. I really focus my time on God. I just need a partner that could do that with me. All this time I'm leading on with a lie. Cheating. Have I been seeing somebody that I don't want to tell this person about because I know they'll run away? Am I still married and I'm not saying that? Am I looking at porn and keeping that a secret? Am I using sex as a power? Because once I'm in this relationship, either I demand sex from you or I withhold it from you. And either way, I'm using it as power. What about my motives? Are they selfish? Of course it is. Unless I've had an awakening, anytime that I'm in a sexual relationship, whether it's with myself or somebody else, it's for a selfish reason. Here's the next question. Am I using them as my higher power? And if so, how? Am I being very submissive, knowing all along that I'm not going to hang around? I'm just waiting around to get what I want to get and then get the hell out of there. Am I using it as a weapon? You'll either do this for me or else. I can get very demanding whenever it comes to sex. Women really zone in on this one a lot, and men too, but especially women. Am I refusing sex to get my way? Have you ever done that? And if so, just briefly, how? What about lying to yourself and being a phony? Have you ever told somebody something you're not? Do you ever brag about how good your children were when in fact they've been taken away, placed in a home because of my drunkenness and my drug addictive life? Talking about how good of a father I am? Am I being a phony? Am I leading women on? That's the next question. Am I just using them for sex? Am I rebounding from a recent relationship or a breakup? What's that old saying that women always say? I think Nikki said it on here before. How do you get over one? Get under another one. How do we men say it? You want to get out from under one, get on top of another one. It's the same thing. So what about having sex with myself? I mean, is that really honest? I mean, or is that being selfish? And if people say, yeah, it's honest and it's not bothering me, then why in the hell are you asking me to go through the steps with you? Because your life is empty right now. What about ignoring others? Have we done that? Having a distorted view of sex and expecting them to read my mind, not sharing my feelings. Let's look at it being inconsiderate. Do we ever consider their needs and their wants? What about their desires? If I'm married, did I consider my marriage? And we're not even talking about having sex here, guys. Are you holding secrets from your partner that you would rather that they didn't know? Are you looking at things on your phone that you really would, if that's not being inconsiderate of my wife, I don't know what is. Am I sitting here with my phone on silent and I'm silently texting while she and I are in the room and we're watching TV together, but I'm in a conversation with somebody else? Is that considerate? Do I say unkind things? There's one. Am I manipulating to get my way, acting immature? So we're going to look at who did we hurt? Now, remember, we're not going to run through a list of names here, but let's look at God. Let's look at them. Let's look at ourselves. Let's look at our children, our family, their family. If I'm sleeping with a girl whose parents has put her through college and all of a sudden she's not going to class because she's doing drugs and we're having sex together all day long and she ends up losing and gets kicked out of school, did that only hurt me and her? What about the parents who spent the money for her to go to school? Did they get hurt? What if she's had a kid that she's left at home with people that she don't even know for a week while we go on a sex binge? Did that child get hurt? Of course he did. Indirectly, I promise you he did. So we want to look at that. Do we unjustifiably arouse jealousy? And here is some of the questions on that. Do I talk about past relationships for effect? And I don't only have to brag about one. I can play the victim in one. I can say, oh, I was in a relationship before. She was on drugs. She lied. She never would share recovery. And it's all a damn lie, every bit of it. But I'm talking about it so that I can get your effect. Oh, David, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I wish things would have been different. I would never treat you that way. The whole time I'm lying, I'm doing this, and I'm doing it for jealousy. Am I flirting with other women? I can remember giving a woman a hug at a conference one time and held on to her for a long time, and I was whispering in her ear about coming to speak at our group, this and that. And my wife is standing in the distance watching me just fuming over this. Yeah, we damn sure arouse jealousy. Playing mind games. What about that one? I remember telling my first wife one time, if you'd take care of your homework, somebody else wouldn't have to do that. She hit me in the face with a whiskey bottle that night. It was just like, yeah, we damn sure arouse jealousy. What about suspicion? Do we act suspicious? Do we keep our phone on buzz? Do we change the passcode? Do I act kind of weird and odd behavior? I'll tell you, I wear guilt like a dirty shirt. Do I avoid my partner sexually because I'm having sex with self all day long while she's at work? I don't call. My behavior's odd. What about that? Just briefly bullet point that. Now let's look at, did we unjustifiably arouse bitterness? Do I throw temper tantrums? I can remember coming in sometimes and just throwing a damn fit because the house was dirty. It wasn't dirty. It was because I felt guilty and I wanted to throw the conversation off of me and put it on her. Being negative, ending a relationship in anger. I can remember saying, I don't need to be around you anymore. I just can't handle, people like you, and just end in anger. Act inappropriately, being selfish. What about starting arguments? Trying to control others, using them for sex, making condescending remarks. Where was I at fault? Was my motives wrong? I think I have an example of that here on one of mine. Where was I at fault? Here's what I wrote. There was no God consciousness. I'm damn sure at fault right there, right? Anytime that I'm not seeking God through this, being honest, only wanted sex, I showed no respect. I expected her to fill a void that only God could. I had shame issues. Wow. What should I have done instead? Last one. On my example, I wrote this. I should have sought God. I should have prayed. I should have left that woman alone. I was married. I should have only had sex with the one I loved in an honored, sacred relationship through God myself. I should have thought more of her than I did me. I should have respected her, and I should have treated her like a child of God. I should have communicated better. There again, I should have treated sex as a God-given, focused, and wholesome relationship. And if the relationship did end, I should have did it on good terms. There is so much that we can look at here, and I don't know if you guys got to take a lot of that down. Hopefully you did, bullet point. But really, when it comes to that very last question for me today, I should trust God, leave other women alone, honor my marriage, been a true friend and a brother to these women that are hurting so bad coming in here looking for help. I should have practiced forgiveness, communicated better, left on good terms, and honored myself, my wife, and most of all, God. So deep stuff. It really is. So I don't know, Justin, does that help, Nikki? Is that kind of what we were looking to do here?
Yeah, I think so. And I've got a few things that I'd like to throw out there, I guess, from examples of questions I've answered, and maybe you do too, Nikki. Can we walk through that and go through that? Yeah, so
Absolutely.
I'll just do a couple of these on from my perspective. I had an awakening as we were doing this, something that I've thought of before, but it really hit me harder, as we were going through, did I lead someone on? Did I pretend to really love someone? Was I using partners for status? And I had this realization really hit me that, the women that I pay the most attention to are the ones who I deem attractive, and I will treat them absolutely different than I treat other people. I'll treat them different than I treat my wife. And the reason why is as I was going through this, that I was enlightened by, was the what if. What if something happens between my wife and I and our marriage is over? What if she dies? What if this happens? I need to have these relationships nurtured so that I can jump right into another relationship at that point. And that's just, it's a mess. It's a disaster in my mind and in my heart. So that's some of the things that I came across. David, do you have any thoughts on that before we go and have Nikki do some of these?
Yeah, I do, and I love that, and that's true. But for myself, it really, my mind will tell me, well, you're getting older now, David. You're not quite the man that you used to be. People don't want you the way they used to. You you need validation. And when somebody gives that to me, then I start to begin to feel like I'm in power. My ego begins to rise. My self-esteem gets higher, while all the while it's setting me up for the fall. Because if I'm not being absolutely honest, one, it's going to be with God. Second, it's going to be with myself and then my wife. That's a unity. It always has been. So, being absolutely honest with these questions, and I'm happy to send this email to you so that you can post and send it to you guys like we did the last one. These questions are just unbelievable. If you'll prayerfully do these, man, it'll wake you up, not to who you've been, but who you've become based on something in your mind that's lied to you all along. And the
Yeah.
good news that we're about to get rid of all this in step 5. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll definitely have these questions available. Just reach out through the email, rico12pod@gmail.com, so we can send those out to anybody who wants them. And we'll have them posted in different places so they're easy to access. Nikki, what were some of the realizations you had as you're going through those questions?
Well, I thought this would be really hard because, as I said, I've just come back from not practicing these principles in all my affairs, which has really destroyed my intimate and personal relationship with, a few people I love deeply in my life, not just one. So, conduct, yeah, I'm using people all the time and I don't even know I'm doing it. That's, I don't even, I think I'm helping it because there's a fine line between the way my disease manifests. Because remember, our behavior patterns vary. And so, long story short, it's like, I'm always wanting something. I'm always wanting something, even now, even with my son, like all my relationship, I want something out of it. And this is supposed to be an agape and altruistic lifestyle. Here's another thing in the dishonesty, which I was really revealed because I'm like, no, I don't cheat. But no, Nikki, you cheat with married men people who are in partners. It's like, I'm so arrogant in my disease. It's like, I don't even lie. I was like, am I really lying? No, I'm so arrogant. I'm telling everybody what I'm doing, and there are no apologies. And then I wind up alone with nobody because of this arrogance and this distorted thinking. It's the addict life is my only normal one, is what I'm seeing. It's like, even today, it's really a daily reprieve. However, I'm really excited because I can see where I've changed from writing this and thinking about it, how different I am. Like, I would always keep a collection of men, numbers, you name it. I have it so I can get, just in case, the just in case, like the trophy of men, the black book, just in case. And you know what? I've been in a committed relationship for 6 years, and nothing like that would ever cross my mind. I recoil from anything like that, like a hot flame. So where am I at fault? It's always my arrogance, my self-loathing, my rudeness, my jealousy of everyone and everything, my disconnect from life. And I love what this said, like what David was reading his list of what he should done instead. But I'll say, how are you going to put those into action? So how I'm going to put these things into action is I need to sponsor, like David said, like he doesn't sponsor women, but I sponsor men. And then by doing that, I'm literally today, a man today told me, one of my sponsees, who's a man, it was my boyfriend literally showing up, speaking through him to me. He had to tell me what I had done, and I couldn't see it. And I did that the other day. I was volunteering, and a little guy on the line, we're all in 12-step volunteering on Saturday, serving, our community. And he literally was my boyfriend again, speaking clearly through his mouth to me. David, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about, being dishonest, being more than just telling a lie, because I'm going to tell myself I'm not enough and I need you to make me enough. And through that lie and through practice and power, I know so much about this program. I'm so ready to help you all. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whenever somebody approaches you in that way, if you're a lady in the crowd and you're new in these rooms, watch for that. There's a lot of predators inside of the rooms of the fellowship, and I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. I know, because I was one for so long. But there's certain things that you got to watch out for. So being dishonest is really a whole lot more than just telling a lie. My first sponsor used to say all the time, he said, you have two people go to a hotel, they're both married to different people, not each other. The minute he asked them, are you married? They both say yes. Did they lie? No. But what they're about to do, is that honest? Absolutely not. There's a big difference between being honest and dishonest and telling a lie. So it's, I love what you said, that other people show up to remind us of what we should have done differently. The biggest thing that I know, where was I at fault? And my sponsor hammered me with this. He said, you've been in these rooms for 25 years. He said, did it never occur to you to practice steps 10 and 11 on a daily basis to keep that shit cleaned up so you would not fall back asleep? He said, you want to know where you're at fault? You are a spiritually lazy man. And that made me mad. That made me mad. But we get so spiritually lazy in here. We just go to meetings and don't drink, or don't you? Well, good luck with that. If you're like me, that's the biggest lie we can tell ourselves. So it's just a powerful way to look at inventory. I'm glad that we took some extra time, Justin, in this episode to do this. It's so important. But there again, if there's any one thing that we can learn from this, this is not who we are. This is who we've become based on a narrative that lives within our head. And that narrative is self. It wants gratification through hurting other people. And it keeps us afraid to tell the truth, because what are they going to think of me? Oh my God, I'll be exposed. And then that builds resentment, and we just stay in this vicious cycle of addiction, and you just can't get loose. So we're going to have to get honest in order to do it. I'm going to have to be more considerate. Remember that this inventory in the 4th step, and in the 10th step, and in the 11th step, these are all the opposite of the 4 absolutes. Once we start to practice the 4 absolutes, these things are less and less. But if we're not practicing them, then this is what shows up. So Yeah, I'm really glad to be here with you guys. Thanks for letting me participate.
Yeah, thank you so much, David, for helping us walk through that. And once again, everybody out there, get in these questions, work them with your sponsor, um, work them with the properly appointed authority, as Nikki talked about earlier to in this meeting, and do that. Nikki, do you have any final words before we close this down?
I'm just grateful that you asked that because I was thinking, I want everyone to hear, like, I'm in a little low spot, but I'm grateful for it because, of course, how dark it is before the dawn. I'm going into a totally new layer of exposure here to God and this program and what happens. But David's marriage was restored. Justin's marriage was restored. My sponsee who called me today, his marriage was restored. These rooms are filled with hope. Don't leave. If you are listening and you're like, I've destroyed my life into the ground, and I'm in the middle of going like, what did I just do these last few months to the man I love? I'm looking at these men who have been restored to glory through working this program. So that's my takeaway, that there is hope, and that if it can happen for you, it can happen for all of us too. I love you guys.
And all I can say to that is amen. God does for me what I cannot do for myself. And God has done that for so many others. And my invitation to anybody out there who thinks, but not me, you are no different than me, than David, than Nikki, than anybody else. God can do for you that which you cannot do for yourself. Why? Because you're worth it. We'll see you next time.